Title: They abandoned me at 11, but when my grandfather died and left me $92 million, they showed up with smiles and lawyers. So I showed them the watch. I didn't come back for love. I came back so they couldn't lie anymore. That's what I told myself the day I rolled back into the Ohio hills where it had all started and ended, the summer I turned 11. The day my mother, Elaine Whitmore, leaned over the cracked vinyl front seat of our station wagon, kissed the top of my head without touching it, and said, "Just for the summer, honey. 3 months tops." My father, Dennis, never said a word. He stared straight ahead, hands gripping the wheel too tight, jaw locked like a man being dragged to his own sentencing. The gravel road twisted through hills like an old scar, and when we reached the farmhouse, it looked like it hadn't seen paint since the 60s. 2 stories, crooked porch swing, the scent of pine sap and motor oil clinging to the air like secrets. They didn't even come inside. Just dropped me and my duffel at the foot of the steps like a delivery gone wrong. And when the door creaked open, it was Walter Whitmore, my grandfather, standing there in a flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, gripping the doorframe like he didn't trust the wind. "Well," he said, "you'd better come in." That was it. No hug. No smile. Just a nod and a hallway filled with dust, books stacked under furniture legs to level the tilt of a house that had seen too much and bent under it. My parents didn't look back. The car disappeared with a crunch of tires. I waited for the sound to return that night. For lights to sweep the gravel, for someone to knock and say it was a mistake. But no one came. Not that night. Not the next. Not ever. The room they gave me wasn't much: a cot, a faded rug, and a window looking out over fields so flat they felt like falling into sky. But on the nightstand sat a small flashlight and a folded towel. Someone had thought ahead. I slept in my shoes for a week, gripping the flashlight like a lifeline. Walter didn't ask questions. He made pancakes every morning like it was procedure, burned the edges just slightly like it was ritual. He never said, "How did you sleep?" or "Are you okay?" He just said, "Eat." And I did. Because silence was our contract, and I wasn't sure I could survive breaking it. In the afternoons, I wandered. I watched him in the shed behind the barn, half mechanic's garage, half graveyard for rusted machines, where he worked on carburetors and old fuse boxes with a radio crackling baseball scores from a corner shelf. One day, I lingered too long. At the doorway. He looked up, then down at the socket wrench in his hand. "Want to try?" I didn't speak. Just nodded. He showed me how to loosen the bolt. My hands were too small. I dropped the wrench twice, but he didn't sigh. Just waited. When the bolt finally turned, he smiled once. The kind of smile you earn. We never talked about it again. But the next day, he left the shed door open. A silent invitation. By the time I was 16, we had a rhythm. He woke up before dawn. I followed the hiss of the percolator into the kitchen. Toast, always one slice burnt, was on the table. I never asked why. I always took the burnt one. I started fixing things. A broken hinge, a leaky spout, the busted heater in the barn. Walter began leaving tools out like bait. Schematics half-drawn, wires laid out like puzzles missing one piece. And I always took the bait. I didn't think of it as engineering back then. I just wanted to fix what broke. Because something had broken in me too. The night I found the court file under Walter's bed, a copy of the paperwork that said my parents had signed me away, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, flashlight in hand, reading the words that confirmed what I'd already known. I wasn't a daughter. I was a problem to be passed off. I didn't ask Walter if he knew. I didn't have to. He handed me a wrench the next day and said, "You'll need your own set soon." That was the closest he came to an "I love you." And I took it. Because it was real. When I was 17, I built a prototype, a collapsible wheelchair that could fold into a backpack. Not perfect. But it worked. Walter sold the old Ford. To get me aluminum tubing. I never asked. I knew what he'd given up. I submitted it to the Ohio Young Inventors Fair. Got 3rd place. But that wasn't the win. The win came 2 weeks later with a letter offering me a spot in a state STEM program and a partial scholarship. Walter didn't say congratulations. He handed me a box of mismatched screws and said, "You'll need these." At graduation, I wore jeans and a clean blouse. He sat in the back, freshly shaved, clapped longer than anyone when I crossed the stage. I don't think he smiled. But I remember the sandwich he handed me afterward, wrapped in wax paper, and the way he said, "Figured you'd be hungry." When I turned 25, he made pancakes from scratch. Burned the edges, just the way I liked them. Gave me a small wrapped box, no ribbon, just paper folded sharp. Inside, a brass pocket watch, cold and heavy. Engraved on the back, "Grace. Forward." I didn't know what it meant. But I wore it anyway, tucked beneath my shirt like armor. That night, we watched the sunset from the porch. He lit his pipe. I told him about a new project at work, some modular mobility device. He nodded. About time someone saw what you can build. The next morning, he was gone. Just gone. Lying on top of the quilt in his bedroom, hands folded, face still. I don't remember the ambulance. I just remember the quiet. And the watch, cool in my hand. Elaine and Dennis showed up at the funeral. Polished, tearful, acting like they had any right to be there. We missed you, she said. We were devastated. I said nothing. Not because I was angry. But because anger is loud, and Walter had taught me the power of quiet. At the lawyer's office, they were already seated. Margaret Blake didn't offer pleasantries. Just said, "This won't take long." And it didn't. Walter C. Whitmore's estate has been legally transferred in full to Ruth A. Whitmore. Elaine gasped. There must be a mistake. But there wasn't. They'd signed me away. And Walter had secured everything. The farm. The patents. The company shares. Total value? $92 million. But none of that landed until Margaret pulled out a scanner and said, "May I see the watch?" I handed it over. She scanned a chip hidden in the casing, biometric encryption keyed to my pulse. That watch wasn't just a gift. It was a key. No one else can access the estate, Margaret said. It's legally airtight. Elaine stood, voice trembling. She's a child. I met her eyes. I'm 25. And you haven't spoken to me in 14 years. Dennis tried to sound reasonable. You don't know what you're doing. You'll ruin yourself. I left without a word. But I was shaking. Not from fear. From clarity. The inheritance wasn't money. It was Walter's trust. And I wasn't going to waste it. But they didn't back down. A week later, I found a manila envelope under the front gate, intent to contest the will, claims of undue influence, attached medical records. They were playing dirty. Then came the black SUV again, creeping up the gravel like a bad omen. Elaine stepped out alone this time. You were always like him, she said. I didn't respond. Your father's sick, she added. Pancreatic. Not long now. She didn't ask for forgiveness. Just told me. And left. That night, I found the hidden latch beneath Walter's study floorboards. Inside, journals, blueprints, and a letter. If you're reading this, I'm gone. But if I raised you right, you're still standing. This land is yours, but not for memory. For something more. Walter had a plan. A foundation. A place where kids like me, discarded, overlooked, could come build, fail, build again. The Whitmore Circle. Not a charity. A movement. I built it. Started with the old barn. Turned it into a lab. Hired a retired engineer. Filed nonprofit status. And one by one, the kids came. Like Claire. Age 11. Foster system. Built a robotic arm that poured water into a cup. Asked if she could keep it. I said no. She cried. Then I handed her the soldering iron. Build a better one. And she did. Every time I hear laughter in that lab, I hear Walter. Not his voice. His legacy. They said he left me everything. But what he really gave me was this, a reason. A place to begin. A life worth building. A home worth defending. They came again near Thanksgiving. Elaine, in a beige coat, eyes dull. She just looked around and said, "You did something with it." I didn't think you would. I didn't answer. She added, "I'm sorry. We were scared. But mostly selfish." I nodded. That was all. And when the wind kicked up and she turned back to the car, I didn't stop her. Some endings don't need to be loud. They just need to be true. There's a room above the barn now. My study. My watchtower. I go there when the day ends and the fields breathe quiet. The ring I wear catches the moonlight sometimes. Legacy. Walter didn't build for applause. He built because he believed that even broken things deserve new hands. I don't wait for closure anymore. I don't need the past to explain itself. Because what matters is the circle we keep alive, the one that keeps growing. And one day, when Claire passes the soldering iron to the next kid who's been left behind, I'll know, the story didn't end here. It just began.